Welcome to another episode of Devs on Tape. Today we have a very special guest. He's a seasoned IT professional and product manager for the Oracle database. With a career that spans back to the middle of the .com hype, he has seen the tech industry evolve and transform in countless ways. Having worked across multiple companies and traveled the globe in his current role, our guest had the opportunity to meet and engage with some of the most innovative minds in the field. On his blog, he shares his personal opinions on the latest trends, advancements, and challenges in the world of IT. And today we'll have the privilege of hearing his thoughts on some of the most pressing topics in the industry. So without further ado, let's welcome Gerald Venzl to the podcast. Hello, Gerald.
Hi, Kai. Hi, Carolyn. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for visiting us. Hi, Caro. I will ever forget that. So, all right. So, just a few words in the beginning. We are recording this podcast in English again, but we are three German-speaking people. So, I think occasionally we will switch back to German if some words are missing. But we think we can reach a very broad audience when we record that big topic we will talk about today in English. So maybe please, Jerry, can you please introduce yourself to our audience a little bit further? Maybe you can give us a little bit more insight besides our intro, what you do at your daily work at Oracle.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. So I'm Gerald. I'm a product manager for Oracle, as you already said. Originally from Austria. I've just about managed my 11th year at Oracle back last weekend. Which is kind of fairly young to compare to, or kind of short comparatively to some of my colleagues. But yeah, I did join in the pre-sales org first, and since 2015, which is about 8 years now or something, just about coming up to 8 years, I'm in product management for Oracle database. What do I do in my daily work is always a good question. I always joke with people, if I would know, once you know, let me know. The work as a product manager in Oracle is actually quite exciting because it's very faceted. So you do a lot of things, and you can influence and do a lot of things in the product. So, we have the typical product management tasks, such as probably first and foremost steering the product into the right direction, to the business needs of our customers, to the current market challenges or opportunities, right? Basically, what's next in your product? What should we build next, right? That's probably the core question of a product manager. But also you get the helping the users to get the best out of your product, fixing the odd documentation, either lack of documentation or bug in there, work with the doc teams. And of course, you kind of mentioned it already a bit before as well. We, at least before COVID, had the opportunity to fly around a bit also around the world and meet with these customers and with the community and various conferences or directly at customer site and really discuss their projects, what they are doing on. What they are doing and working on, and how we can help.
Cool. So if you should estimate or give us a number of how many people are actively influencing the future of the Oracle database. So you could say 200,000, or each and every employee at Oracle has his influence in the future of the product. But if I think of your position right now as a product manager, how many people are influencing actively what's happening in the future of the next version of Oracle database?
So, if we stay within Oracle, as you said, there's kind of many different angles and people, how they can influence the product. One nice thing about Oracle and why I actually really like working, especially for the database org, is because internally, although we are such a big company, it feels a lot still like a startup, or what I was classified as a startup. So it's like although you have these defined roles of a development manager, product manager, etc., it's like ideas come from everywhere, and there's a very open culture that people can talk directly with each other. You don't have to kind of crawl the corporate ladder or pyramid hierarchy system, right? So there's really a lot of different influence to it. We PMs, product managers, can of course and should recommend new functionality or enhancements to existing functionalities for for current trends or business opportunities that arise. But actually, a lot of the innovations that are in the Oracle database also come straight out from development. So it's like my development colleagues have some really, really, really smart guys there. They have worked on Oracle database for 20, 30, some even longer years. They know exactly what's kind of like, what's in the world of data management and how to take best advantage of new technologies that arise, or perhaps, functionality that we should have always had, or, that seems really intriguing and built. So it's sort of a very long answer, but it's like a lot of people have very broad influence on the direction of the Oracle database. And I think it resembles itself in why the Oracle database is such a powerful software out there, and kind of number one for such a long time, because there's just a lot of bright minds working on this product. So yeah, that's part of the joy of working there as well, I guess.
I mean, I think from the outside view, you could think of Oracle as a I don't want to pronounce it so negatively, but it's an old-fashioned company, but with so much knowledge in the area of databases. So if there's any new trend or anything that is necessary for Oracle databases or for databases in general, Oracle should know it and influence that. It's nice to hear that there's an influential part of it, that like you call it a startup vibe, that everyone can bring up new ideas, and that's one thing I was thinking of the last years, I think. That all the Postgres database or MySQL or whatever you want to use there for comparison are bringing new features and the new stuff around, and open source stuff and new products. How is Oracle behaving with those influence from outside? So are they thinking, oh, this new NoSQL influenced databases, should we do something like this too? And it's very, very nice to hear that there are young or fresher people out there who are influencing actively into the Oracle database and bringing new features in there that you might have seen the other way around. So did you see any change since your beginning, when you started a few years ago? Did you see any change since then, what the product management means? So
I'm biting my tongue on the obvious NoSQL, other open source database thing that you've just pointed out there, right? But I just to that respect, I want to say, which is kind of interesting as well, me being like not quite the young guy anymore, but also not yet the old guy, but somewhere in between these days. A lot of the things that we think is new, it's actually not new at all.
Yeah.
It has been around before, and often I get reminded by my colleagues with more experience, shall we say, that certain trends have been around, right? So for example, this whole, because you have mentioned NoSQL databases, this whole idea about sharding and shared nothing architectures, that has been debated in the 90s, endlessly, when we three were probably all still in school and didn't care about databases. And, it's like, was one of these discussions where back then it was decided clustering is better than shared nothing, for different reasons, though, mind you, than what we have these days. So, there's that aspect to it, and, new features and so forth coming. It's like, I take another hit here and then I move on to your actual question. But, Postgres 15, personally think what the Postgres community is doing, fantastic. Postgres 15 finally introduced the merge statement. Congratulations. It's only in the SQL standard since, 2003 or whatever. Oracle had it in 9i. So, it's like, it's not so black and white. And, this, again, I don't actually mean it, negative to the other products out there either. And overall, we're building these products to make life easier for our customers. But, it's like a give and take, right? Sometimes some technologies introduce some functionality where perhaps we don't have that yet, right? We're certainly not always first. But also, I think Oracle database has shown, especially in the SQL world, a lot of leapfrogging, or let's at least say actively driving. And I say this truly because I am also part of the ISO SQL standard since, 2 years now, almost or something. And Oracle is quite proactive in what we also give to the SQL standard, and basically give away to the wider SQL community, if you like, or to our other competitors to implement as a standard functionality. Yeah, so to come back to the question, what changed in product management itself, I think, like obviously my role has changed quite a bit as well in those 8 years. But I think in general, the company obviously in itself has gone through quite a bigger transition, right? So it's like, I think not recalling the exact dates now, but when I joined product management, the company was transitioning to being this cloud company, right? Doing Oracle Cloud. I think it started a couple of years before. And as such, also, of course, our work changed, or our tasks changed quite a bit as well, right? Going from a pure, here's an Oracle database, or here's a database software product to download and install, to also offering cloud services. The other thing that, like one thing that makes me very proud is though that also, I don't want to say there's a culture change as such in Oracle happening. I mean, there is in Oracle, but actually not so much in the Oracle database development organization that I'm in. But I think certainly, the world has changed. People want to have cloud subscriptions rather than perpetual licenses, etc., etc. And although we have many customers still running on-prem, of course, as well, and we do everything for them just as our cloud customers that we can to help them with the business. Different needs have arisen, or different sort of work engagements have arisen, right? It's like you do things differently than 20 years ago. In short, there you basically burned something on a CD and said, buy it off a store somewhere, right? It's like the world is in a very different place, and with that, Oracle has obviously changed quite a bit as well. And in general, I always got on really, really well with my colleagues inside and outside the Oracle database org, and that's, I guess, a reason why I'm still there after 11 years and having fun. And that's something that's maybe not always so visible in the outside world either.
Sure, exactly. So you saw me grinning for the last couple of minutes, I think, because I was just referring to, I want to refer to the thing you said, that you talked to your other colleagues about the stuff you saw online or whatever, and they say, oh, it's around for 10 or 100 years, maybe, for the new features we're recalling. And I'm remembering exactly this conversation with my father the last 30 years I'm alive, right? Always when I tell him, oh, my phone can do this, or we have voice recognition right now, or we have AI trained models that can create texts and images and so on. My father, I was never able to impress him by telling him what's able today, because he was 25 years in a management of HP, Hewlett Packard, and he said, oh, we did that like 50 years ago, and I said, no, you didn't. We did, and we were always talking about the stuff, and I was always trying to impress him with that, and it's always the same. I think the main thing why those new, or I call it new, databases or companies or products that are out there, which makes them so important right now on the market, is that they are sometimes for free. And this is another point, or something we can use as a transition to the main topic today, what we want to talk about. Smooth.
Oh yeah, really? Well, we have another topic.
Yeah. So when we talk about free products, Gerald, maybe you have something in your pocket we can talk about today. What is free at Oracle?
There's actually quite a lot of stuff free at Oracle that people kind of forget as well. To give a call out to some of my colleagues outside the org, is like, we got MySQL, we got Java, we got Oracle Linux. There's a free tier in Oracle Cloud, and always free tier in Oracle Cloud. We were even the first to offer such an always free tier. But I think where you're getting at is essentially
I was saying, come on, it was just a ramp for your rocket to launch right now.
That was the teaser, right? What else? Yeah. I think it's the, we last, while we're recording this last week on April 4th, we launched or released Oracle Database Free Developer Release, which is a free Oracle database. And the really, really exciting thing about this is, if I jump right into that, is that it's actually a next version of Oracle Database. So it's 23C. Which is also the next long-term support version, or right now deemed to be the next long-term support version. We're fairly confident about that already, that it will be. And we're giving it for free to specifically developers first, to give them as we say in our blog post, a head start in basically familiarizing themselves with the new functionality. And that in itself is quite a big change for Oracle and the Oracle database work in a couple of ways. So number one, we are releasing first and foremost the next version of Oracle database for free. That has been something that has not been the case in the past. So as far as I could research back into, when I'm in Oracle and years before, nobody can tell me about the 80s anymore, but that has never really happened, at least in the last, let's say, 20 years, right? Obviously, we had some free Oracle database offerings that we can drill down deeper on, but like really the big news here is, okay, wow, this is really like a 180-degree turn in how Oracle releases the software. Why are we doing it, right? It's like, what has changed? Why did we come to this conclusion? I truly believe myself, and many of my colleagues do as well, that this is the right approach. It's a win-win situation for everybody, our customers, developers out there, and Oracle, of course, in the long run, to release new functionalities to developers first, because that allows them to start, as I said before, using this new functionality first. Well, so boo-hoo, what's the big deal, right? Well, it's like what we have seen in the last couple of years, and 12C, the 12C Oracle Database 12C family is a good example of that. It's like the what's sort of now the old model, kind of the traditional model, where we would kind of release Enterprise Edition first on premises, right? If we kind of ignore cloud for a moment. We would release it. Enterprise customers, obviously very important to us, get it first and foremost. They download it, they can start planning their upgrades to this new version, etc., etc. So all well and good, but customers take a while to upgrade their databases. And I've spoken to customers that have told me they have literally 20,000 Oracle database instances running, right? Like from everything from production to like your dev environment. But they're like, we have over 20,000 instances running across our estate. And, obviously we're not going to just start upgrading 5 and call it a day. We kind of have to roll out a plan to upgrade all of them. So that takes a while, obviously. And then so sometimes that can take months, some customers even, longer than that. And then you end up in a scenario where you kind of have a new version of Oracle database. Okay, customers take a while to upgrade. Then they finally have upgraded, then maybe, a while has gone by. And then now that they are on the new version, it triggers the demand for having support of this new functionality that is in the new version. So I mentioned 12C before, right? So it's like, you cannot believe, or maybe you can, but I cannot believe how many discussions I had when 19C, the current long-term support release, came out about what multi-tenant is and pluggable databases, which literally released in just about 3 months' time, I think, 10 years ago. Like 12.1 came out in, I think, June or July 2013, right, where we introduced this new architecture. But of course, customers, went from 11, a lot of customers went from long-term support release to long-term support release, so 11G to 19C, no surprise. And now they started looking like, hey, what is this stuff, right? And it's like, and so like I literally dug out the old 12C collateral. It's like, let me tell you what's in 12C. And so kind of to closing this loop on this particular one, the win-win here is really for everybody, including our customers, right? But essentially what we're hoping to try to do here is that, it's like by the time our customers upgrade, they have applications, frameworks, libraries ready. It may be ready to go. In the best case scenario, fantastic, works with 23C, knows of all the new update functionality and leverages it. You don't have to come back and say, does your application work on 23C? Is it certified, etc.? All already taken care of. Or at least give them a head start. And that also means internal applications. A lot of our customers have obviously big development shops internally as well, to start thinking about this stuff now, so that by the time they do roll out, the upgrade on their, let's say, 20,000 database estates, they're not starting to only look at this new functionality from then on.
So what's the best way to start using the new version then? Can you use it with Docker or any other platforms?
Yeah. So I have to be a bit careful now what I'm saying. So because some people know also what I do in my private life as well with Docker. But so we put extra emphasis on making it that simple to install. And like I'm true. I'm a true believer. I think it's kind of proven out there these days that if it's not simple to install, you have that's your first hurdle,
Yeah.
and a big impression hurdle that you leave on any user out there, right? It's like whether it's a developer or somebody else, right? It's like I will not waste my time on any technology I've heard the first time of potentially, right? Or even in the past, I will not waste like half a day to get it up and running myself. It's like,
Exactly.
if it takes too long, Google, there's something else out there. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Right. And let's just say, Oracle historically has not been known as an easy to use database, Oracle database, right? And, to a large extent, I mean, it is a very, very sophisticated product. There's a reason why we are number one in pretty much every category that analysts look into ranking databases. So there's, of course, a lot of bells and whistles there. But also the, again, day and age has changed. 20 years ago, or maybe even just 10 years ago, I probably would have spent a lot of time getting it up and running because perhaps there wasn't that many, that much offering of other technologies, similar technologies out there that are easy to get hold of, right? Perhaps I had an entire career still I actually had an entire career for a brief moment of being an Oracle database expert tuning expert, I guess, or expert tuning guy. So, things have changed, at least for me. And so I think it's very important that, it's like, the install experience is like you step into the restaurant or whatever you want, right? It's like if you cannot get in, if it's already hassle to get in, I should say the beer hall, really, given that we're 3 German speakings here, right? It's like if I cannot get in, I will get my beer somewhere else, right? Even if it's not the same type, right? But it's like, yeah. So I think it's really important that the install experience is really good, right? And so for Oracle Database Free, we essentially provide a Docker image, we provide a VirtualBox VM, and also this Linux RPM file. Linux RPM file is also nothing new. The packaging up to Docker and VirtualBox is also not necessarily something new, but it's like, from what I can tell personally, a personal experience, and what the download numbers show us, a lot of people seem very, very comfortable with Docker images these days to spin up, right? There is the odd people that still like their VirtualBox VM. I say odd people because I'm actually one of them, because I really like the snapshotting capability that I have in VirtualBox, right? It's like I try something out, I need to do something else, snapshot, thank you very much. Don't get that with Docker. But yeah, so we just wanted to make sure that it's as easy to install on these environments. Now, I mentioned a couple of gotchas. We're aware of that, and also in the blog post we say that the Windows version is coming soon. So there always has been a Windows native install for other Oracle database editions or variations. So that is in the works. Why is that happening right now? It's essentially just that we develop on Linux in-house, and so therefore, like, releasing Linux is always the fastest for us because we're building it on the platform, right? Everywhere else we have to have porting efforts, and even that, for Oracle users out there, they know that this has also been nothing new in the past. And when we release a new version, there's Linux first. Good old days used to be Solaris alongside with Linux. And then Windows is usually following a couple of weeks after, right? And then all the other platforms. And so this is what we're seeing here as well. So yeah, we're trying to make it as simple as possible, right? It's like, I already know that that quite a few people have downloaded Docker images. Now they are on Container Registry, Oracle.com. There's some other location as well where you can get a Docker image for Oracle. I'm not going to tell you which one. But we're going to basically, as I said, like, want to make sure, especially for, I said before, like, for me, it's very, very important that we make this install experience as slick as possible. And we're hoping, we definitely continue working on that, right? And hoping to have a really, really slick install as we move forward to all the platforms.
Yeah, that's exactly how I'm managing my private server, right? So if I'm trying to find something like a link shortener, some blog platform, or if it's like Nextcloud or something, I'm just spinning up one Docker container with a Docker Compose file, right? So now if I'm searching for a solution and I have like 5 or 10 to choose from, I'm choosing at first, my first filter criteria is it usable by in a Docker container. And then maybe they have some examples
Right.
for the Docker Compose setup, which variables and stuff should be set. And then you put it in my environment and say, okay, spin it up and see if it works right out of the box, right? So, and if it's taking me so much time to just write my own script, to install it into the container, to get it up and running, scalable, and so on, then it takes me too much time to be comfortable to reach my goal, right? So that's the reason why I'm spinning up the containers. And I did that before with some of those solutions you don't want to talk about, I think, like scripts from the community and where you put the files in and so on. And that's the easiest way when I saw this new release from your side, that I'm just able to pull a container, put it into my Docker Compose and spin it up and then install Apex in it. And it takes me not longer than 30 minutes, I think, to get everything up and running for my development and private environment where I just try something out. And this is some major improvement, I think. So you were able to install Oracle databases in Docker containers before, but I think it's way easier right now with this new release. So there's another plus point for me just to switch everything I have onto the new developer preview or developer release, unless I want to try out the new features also. But I think it's time to switch all my stuff I have into this official container, which will not break when the new version occurs. So maybe we can talk about the journey. So it's back from the hard facts of the new release, back to the point where we should talk about how this journey was to get something at Oracle, the newest version, the next version of the Oracle database, published for free. So I don't think that's a single man operation. So you didn't go further and say, I want to have the next version for free before everyone else have it. And then, let's talk about that. What can you tell me for this journey?
It was a long journey. Actually, you mentioned one thing, though, that I should have pointed out before as well, Kai. So if you don't mind me saying it, one important aspect of Oracle Database Free and also other free offerings is that you can just download it straight from the web, which I think is what you kind of just meant with, like, I can just pull it from Container Registry, Oracle.com, and off you go. And in the past, you always had to kind of go into Oracle.com, sign in, and click this license acceptance to download it, right?
And then put it into the container.
And it sort of is part of... Right, so that's part of the journey question, but just so people are aware, this is another thing how we made this easier to install, to be able to download it straight from the web. How did it start? It's like, let's see how far you want me to wind back. So I guess part of my day job today and in product management, I did actually not kind of go into that too much either before. It's like I sort of have, with of course many of my colleagues, like the area of what we call application development over. So like, how can we make Oracle database for application development? I was asked by Andy Mendelson, who you obviously know is my boss's boss. He was like, Gerald, you are a developer in your actual previous life to Oracle, as to many of us being DBAs in PM land. You should really, tell us what we need to do to make it better for developers. For everything that we've already said before, not to bore the listeners, it's like going easy, quick is obviously really, really important. Knowing that you will not be sued by somebody because you use the technology is also important. And, it's like Oracle definitely doesn't have the best reputation there, right? And I think that is also what stopped a lot of developers from using Oracle technologies, because they just didn't know, can I use this for free or not? So it was actually in 2017, 6 years ago now, that, I was 2 years in product management. And I was like, hey, why don't we have Oracle Express Edition, Oracle Database Express Edition out there for 12c yet? It's like we want to get people into multi-tenant architecture, using pluggable databases and understanding all this good stuff, and yet all I can download is 11gr2. And I closely followed with, and some of my colleagues can maybe attest to that when you find them and talk to them over beers. Like, sometimes I can be very persuasive. I don't easily take no for an answer. So I followed on with kind of very quickly of like, and why is it that like this thing is kind of has only 10% of the functionality of the great functionality that we have. Now, it wasn't 10% per se, but for people who know 11g XE, it was kind of a slimmed down version of the Oracle database. And yeah, so back then, we can go more into history afterwards if you like, but back then was kind of when this journey already started, right? So we did back then an 18c XE. It changed quite drastically compared from, I mean, drastically or not, but from the concept from an 11g or 10g XE, it changed quite a bit, is that we tried to include all the enterprise edition functionality. We didn't quite get there fully because we had to go in and change the code that basically deactivated it, or the code was even missing in the build and so forth. And so, but we basically, went already on to this 18c XE being a more full-featured version of Oracle, or edition of Oracle database. Then we had 21 XE, right? We oddly missed the 19c XE. That was because like the 10G and the 11G XEs were custom or manual builds, like they were literally one-offs. And when we decided that this is important, which was obviously not me, more like the people like Andy Mendelsohn, etc., we started making it part of our base build process, or of our regular build process, so that every night we would kind of have these different editions come out. Now that took some time as well, and we sort of like ran into time pressure to get to 19c Oracle Database 19c out, which was obviously next long-term support release, and we still had to do this for the free version, etc. And anyway, it did just not work out, unfortunately. Now, why Oracle Database free, right? And the many questions I already gotten from XE fans of like what's happening next, right? So there's a couple of things that are not obvious right now what are going to happen, and some things are quite obvious what happened if you know the history to XE and others. So number one, right, why Oracle Database free? Because, it's like, believe it or not, way too many people out there, including customers and developers out there that don't know Oracle that well, or Oracle Database that well, had no clue that Express Edition existed, or that Express Edition was a free Oracle database. Name also doesn't quite give it away, does it? And Express Edition was more geared for, to the history of a fast install, and I did my digging there and can maybe elaborate more later on if you like. So that's number one, right? But then, why Oracle Database free developer release? Well, because actually the new product that you will be seeing alongside Enterprise Edition and other Oracle Database editions will be Oracle Database free. But what you're getting now is sort of like, you mentioned it before, it's not like a preview. It's sort of like an early access, if you like, right? So it's like we're calling it specifically developer release. So why are we doing this? What are we doing here? Well, essentially, a lot of in 23C in general, we have this internal tagline, App Simple was our tagline for our motto for this release. So we have put a lot of application development functionality in 23C, as you've probably seen. And a lot of this functionality was ready to go, right? It's like completed, tests complete, etc. already months ago. And, in the good old way, we kind of like everything has to be ready so that we have a general available release, a GA release, right? And so we kind of were like, well, if the idea is to get developers a head start on this update functionality, they probably don't care about their clustering technology that much, high availability, disaster recovery, etc., all this stuff, where we're doing a lot of good stuff as well, a lot of features coming into these areas as well. All of these features are sitting there, they're checked in, they're ready to go. So why don't we just take what we have right now with this update feature specifically and have this developer release, right? Make it very explicit for whom this is, right? Although, when you look at the license, anybody can use it, right? But it's very specifically, here's your first access to the update functionality in Oracle Database. And then as we go GA, we will have an Oracle Database Enterprise Edition and Oracle Database Free, and so forth, right? So, the one question that I do get right now, not that often, but it's a legitimate question, right? It's like, so A, is it just a name change from XE to free developer release? Or B, is this the successor to XE to Express Edition?
Exactly my question, yeah. The next one I was preparing, yeah.
So A is no. A is a yes and no. Is it just a renaming, right? It's like yes and no, right? It's like, for people like yourself, Kai, who have seen what happened with 18c XE and 21 XE, where we then also finally enabled multi-tenant, right, like the PDBs and so forth, it's the end of a longer journey. So yeah, you could see it like it's just a renaming, but it's like 23C free is not the same as 18C XE. And, if you would have had a 23C XE, it would have not been the same as 18C XE. So in a regard, you can say yes and no. Is it just a name change? Yes, but I would say it's much more than just a name change because of the whole methodology behind of, putting it out there for free first, giving people, early access to these functionalities and, right? All this good stuff. Is it the successor to XE? Yes, it is the successor to XE. That's something that right now we haven't made very explicit. I mean, basically, Oracle Database Free is the successor to Oracle Database Express Edition, not yet this developer release. There is nothing else but this developer release right now. But yeah, eventually, so it will be the successor to Express Edition, right? It's like you can kind of say like Express Edition has grown up or whatever you want to say. I was always a big fan of Express Edition. So why the name change? I mentioned already before. Well, a lot of people were actually not aware that we had a free Oracle database. Or even when they downloaded Express Edition, I had these conversations myself, right? It was like, but is it really free? Why is it called Express Edition, etc.? That name change we actually discussed in 2017 as well when we did Oracle 18C XE. And we specifically back then said, let's not do it because Express Edition is a very good brand recognition, right? So when we looked at the Google rankings, etc., they were very, very high and still are. People are eagerly waiting for an XE, right? So it's like kind of let's not kind of confuse the community with something new. Let's first kind of here's the new XE, get them going and put them on this journey as said that we have arrived now. So back then we made a conscious decision not to rename it already back then to Oracle Database Free. That was already on the table back then, and now we're basically finishing that journey and have this new product Oracle Database Free. It even says in the version banner it's free, so everybody should hopefully get yes, it's free. And it's sort of like I always say, it's like the little brother to the always free tier, the Oracle Autonomous Database Always Free. I think Always Free Autonomous Database, right, that you get in cloud as well.
I mean, if we talk about the cloud products and so on, we just need another hour just to call out the different names for the products.
Yes.
I think this might be some critic, but yeah. So, I mean, before we run into this wall of safe harbor statement you might have to read out loudly, let me just try one question and you decide if you answer that. So if I'm starting right now with the 23C to build up my environment, maybe at a customer side or for internally in the company, and try out new things and build up stuff and check if our scripts and tools and products are working on it, will there be a way to upgrade from this environment to a production enterprise or maybe the next XE or whatever? Will we be able to upgrade from this instance to a production instance, or is it somewhere in the small print of the disclaimer which says it's not a stable version, but maybe not a long-term support version where you can upgrade from, everything can change, and it's just the early adopter thing that everything could change in the next production version of this 23C.
23C. Yeah, no, there is no disclaimer. It's like what I said basically before, is that this functionality that you get today is basically what you would have also gotten if you would have had a 23C GA back then. Now people may find some deficiencies in the functionality, bugs, etc. Or maybe even we got a couple of people that are already like, hey guys, did you ever think about this? This gives us a chance to still impact and influence the feature itself. But that's nothing new. I mean, even it's like you can get a bug fix anytime, as an Oracle Database Enterprise Edition customer, right? That may change a certain functionality. But I think I've also experienced this already in social media the last couple of weeks. So I think the gist of the question is, no, this will not completely change. I don't know where people even got this idea from. Although I have a friend in the UK that has a very popular blog that may or may not have led to that as well, to this belief. But it's like, so this is a GA, number one, it's a GA version, right? So it's released. This is not like a preview or whatever for all the things I've just said before. And we don't expect most of this functionality to change drastically, that it will not work at all. Okay. Now, as said, it's like people in forums may tell us, hey, this may not work as expected, or have you guys thought about that? And we will put this feedback back into maybe not the product, but thinking about it, and we think, yeah, this makes sense, or this is indeed a deficiency, we will fix it, right? But again, this is like nothing new than a customer filing a support request and saying, hey, this doesn't work, and we fix it. Now, to your point about upgrade, I think there it is important to understand the terminology, I guess, of upgrade, right? So it's like it is a fully compatible Oracle database with Enterprise Edition, or Autonomous database even for that matter. So whatever you find in the Oracle database free, you will have an Enterprise Edition or Autonomous, and in those two you will have much more, right? Like our clustering technologies, etc., etc. So it is fully compatible with those. Now, we don't support any kind of a customer, or people sometimes ask me like direct upgrade from that. So you cannot just like take Oracle database free and put Oracle database Enterprise Edition binaries over it and kind of magically upgrade this to Enterprise Edition.
Put some activation key in, and all the limitations are gone, right?
yeah, exactly, right. This is partly because also the binaries being slightly different. So it's like it's not an as easy process, and we don't think there should be that need for the developer community or the user community altogether. Because if you develop something on it, you have your code checked into a GitHub repository or Git repository, source code version control repository somewhere, hopefully, right? And you roll this out into production. So somebody coming in and saying, well, I want to upgrade this now from Oracle database free to an Enterprise Edition. You should not have that many issues. However, you still can, just not in place. By copying the binaries over, you can always, export, import essentially, right? And take your data model and import it into an Enterprise Edition.
Yeah.
Or you can even, for that matter, go ahead and import from an Enterprise Edition to your Oracle database free to continue local development.
Yeah, I mean, if you just move your code, it should be a great way, or the right way to do it. But I think there are different points where this developers or database developers are working on. So if they decide to start with Oracle and they choose the XE version or the free version, they try out some stuff, and then at some point they decide that they want to go into a real licensed product because of the patches. This was one of the reasons why I was starting not that long ago, right? So I was having this 11G R2 XE release on my machine, and when I decided, can I make it working on my machine, on my server, like a distributed machine? And I was thinking of, okay, this binary wasn't touched for the last couple of years, and there were no security patches, and you see security patches around you in the enterprise segment where they come on a regular base, and my instance wasn't patched for a couple of years now, for example, or month maybe. And if I try to put my stuff onto this new free version or the latest XE or the next XE or whatever, I was always thinking about the part that I will not get security fixes right in place because I need a production version. And that might be the transition point when I want to switch from this XE or free version or whatever to a productive environment where it's safe to put customer data on and so on. I mean, we will talk about the part where you have the limitations, and if you are able to use this database as like making money out of it, right? So it's not a free, you can use it in production, but the patch part is still a thing, right? So you will not get the news patches for the next XE version or for this free version of 23C, right? Unless you have this paid license right after that release.
Yeah, so yes and no. Yes, you're right, but factually it's like so you made it sound like as if you can buy support for it and then you get the patches. No, so what are the limitations of Oracle Database Free? And they're the same to what the 21C XE was like, right? So it's like it's a source constraint built in. You don't have to worry about it in that sense, like unlike what we had in the previous 11G releases where we kind of set in the license you must ensure that you don't go with 2 CPUs or whatever. This is all baked in. It's resource constraint, so eventually you may hit those limits, and there is no commercial support available. So what does no commercial support mean? It means you don't get an Oracle database support contract, you cannot file any SRs, and subsequently you cannot get any patches for free or XE in that matter. But let's stick to free so that we don't confuse people too much, because that's the road forward. So yes, you do not get any security patches that you can download via Oracle support for free. Even if you were to get a security patch for Enterprise Edition, let's say, you cannot install it on free either. Taking out all the patching facilities from it. So that kind of leads to a couple of questions, right? Or a couple of scenarios like this. The one guys that go like, oh my God, I don't get any security patches. I can never use this in production. That's a fair statement. Congratulations, buy yourself an Oracle Enterprise Edition license, Standard Edition 2, use an ORS free autonomous database, use any other Oracle cloud service. If you have that limitation, fair enough, granted. Oracle database free is not for you. As simple as that, To some extent, this is very similar to what people seem to accept in the open source world with community editions and enterprise editions.
Yeah.
There they go like, download this community edition thing, like maybe it gets a release every 3 months, maybe it gets it once a year, whatever. I built my stuff out, and then there's a lot of funny stories on the web as well when they come back and say, how dare you have to fix my bug in the community edition because I ran my production environment there. Those companies will also tell you this is why we have enterprise edition, this is why we have support subscriptions, etc. Right? And I think this is important for people to understand, right, and not get too hung up about that fact. Now, to your point, it's like, okay, what if I'm gonna start building and I want to run this and make money out of it? I want to have a product that runs, etc. And I want these support not support fixes, these security fixes or patches, etc. Right? There's at least two things, maybe a couple of things to consider, right? A, it's fully compatible. So it's like if you are such a company in today's world, we have seen most of these companies probably want to just run this in a cloud environment. So you can take whatever you have on free and subscribe to, again, an autonomous database or an Oracle database cloud service, whatever, right? And run it in the cloud. It has the big benefit. Not only do you get your security patches, etc., you don't even have to install them. We do it for you, right? Or the cloud provider does it for you, and gives you even guarantees that the stuff is up for that long, etc., etc. And you don't have to buy a server and, right? It's like all the good stuff for cloud. But of course, also, on the other hand, it's like, you can just, take it and, put it on Enterprise Edition, etc. The other thing that people kind of get into their minds, and I can see why, because we don't really explicitly say this or whatever, it's like when you get the really critical security vulnerabilities. Where it's like, there may be a tiny bug here or whatever, etc., or there may be a kind of a tiny issue there. But it's like, what do you do when you get like a log4j kind of situation, right? It's like, and what does that mean for free? It's like, we have the capability in Oracle to always release a new version of free, right? And current plans, perhaps, you already will see that there will be one more, or there will be a version of Oracle database free with GA, that's no longer has this - developer release to it, right? So like whenever these situations occur, and our security guys alert us to what they call these CVEs, these critical vulnerability exposures, we look at it and say, how critical is it? What do we have to do? And if we ever deem to say, okay, we have to, there's such a severe security issue in free, we have to fix it, then you will get a new version that has the fix in place. Now for Log4j, we actually didn't have to do anything because it's a Java library, and Oracle database is written in C. So there was no, although there was one Log4j library in one of the UI tools that happened to ship with the Oracle home, but wasn't used by the Oracle database. There was no security vulnerability for that. And so like even for 18C and 21C XE, we never had the situation arise that we say, okay, this is so critical, we have to kind of re-release it, right? There were no such critical security vulnerabilities present. And we know a couple of people that quite happily also, and it's not to underestimate, run the current XE in production without any issues and with no like, oh my God, doomsday is coming. Like I think apex.world is still a website that runs on an XE, quite happily. And it's all good. So it's like, hopefully this kind of helps the listeners also a little bit more to understand where we are here. But yes, you don't have any support.
Sure. I mean, it's a different feeling if you have a couple of years between the different XE releases, or if you have it like once a year or once every 2 years. I think then the feeling is not that heavily inside myself, for example. But I know from people from the community, they are using, or they're deciding to use, for example, Apex to have their private stuff on for maybe for a soccer club in the local community. And if they decide which technology they use, the last decision would be a very expensive Oracle license. So they look into the XE stuff.
Right.
And then if you decide to use an database, which is, like I already said, like a couple of years old, and then you decide to put even maybe some master data in it, which contains maybe like credit card information or IBAN numbers or telephone contact stuff, then you think twice if this is the right thing to do, or if you just use like a MySQL database or Postgres and put some React or Angular stuff on top of it. So the way to decide for Apex, for example, right now, is impacted by this thing, and it's I think it is very clear that when you say that if there's a very massive security breach, or CVE you called it that, then you have a look inside that severity. I think that's the word. How severe it is, yeah.
So in general, right, when we get these these critical vulnerability exposures, I think they're called CVEs. Like we get tons of them all the time, right? It's like from whatever something is found out there on, whatever open source library or whatever else you have, right? So you kind of these are well-known not comments, but well-known concepts out there, and we have a whole security team that is constantly evaluating these, right? Not only for free, but also for enterprise customers, for cloud, etc. So this is like an ongoing process. And they always give us ratings, right? Of like, okay, how severe is this, right? And second, there's like some of those where you say we have to produce a patch now and it has to be available, within the next hour or whatever. And there's something where you go like, yeah, this is could be potentially cause this if like 5 different things fall together, etc., etc. But I think one thing that you have mentioned before, which kind of now you kind of opened my eyes. Maybe this is where people are coming from. And I didn't mention this specifically before. It's like, yes, of course, there was nothing from 11G XE till 18C XE, and that was 7 years, I believe. It was 2011 to 2018. That was a long gap. But going forward, our plan is to release an Oracle free with any GA version of Oracle database, so that you will have, indeed this like, what you see now happening with 21C and 23C. Now we didn't quite manage for 19C for reasons I've mentioned before, but that's certainly our plan, so that you have always a constant new version of this as well. And XC was really something geared for something completely different. I don't know whether we have time or want to go into that, but let's park it as a thought for later on.
Maybe for a second episode, I think. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I have one last question, because we haven't dived into the specific new features of a new version yet. But the one thing I would like to know is, what is the most important reason why developers should check out the new version?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's always hard to pick a specific one, but we have seen that the JSON relational duality that we have put into Oracle database, these JSON relational duality views have certainly gotten huge positive traction out there. And it's one of those things where, remembering the comment before, where kind of any kind of NoSQL database or open source competitor, they are years behind us, what we have done there. It will take them a while to catch up, if they even manage to. But there's also many other things in there. And second, it's funny how when you talk to different people, how different people get excited. So it's like Boolean data type is here. Yay!
That's also my feature.
Many people get probably more excited about that than JSON relational duality stuff, right? But also we got domains now, or what we kind of refer to as SQL domains, because like we have like domains already in service names and so forth. So not to confuse that, but it's like a construct in SQL. And you can define a domain type, sort of. It's not quite a type the way we've implemented it, but it's like typical example would be like, here, store a credit card number in a number field. The database just sees this as number. It doesn't know that it can only have 15 or 16 digits, etc. You can create a credit card domain on top of that number, giving the database and all the other applications this know-how that what they're actually dealing with is a credit card number, not just some random 16-digit kind of a number that comes along. So that's like for the SQL guys like myself, a very nice feature, very exciting feature. JavaScript store procedures for your Apex guys probably not so exciting because you already got it in 21C, but JavaScript store procedures full on support is now there with our multilingual engine, which is essentially the functionality that embeds GraalVM. So you can now create JavaScript functions, procedures, input NPM packages, and so forth. And that's going really, really well. There's also a broader journey there. There's new property graph queries that are coming as part of the SQL standard. I mentioned before that we're pushing the standard. This one was actually a joint effort. Now, of course, there's many, many people in the standard and many vendors, and they have all worked on that. So it would be unfair to not call them out. But it was heavily pushed by Neo4j and Oracle Corporation to put this property graph SQL support into the standard. And you have it since last week in Oracle database, although the new SQL standard isn't even out yet. That's about to come in, it's a couple of, not too long anymore, should be out soon, but it's like, cool, right? Oracle database has functionality that will be in the SQL standard. How did we do that? Well, we actively work on it and drive it. There's like on my blog post I mentioned a couple of these highlights, but there's also other things that I think smaller things that people are excited as well, like group by position and probably more important, column alias is finally there. These kind of little helpers, the multi-value table constructor, I think it's called, the fact that you can insert multiple rows with one go. Now you can thank me for that one if I take the credit for it, but
now it's public.
But yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of fun things in there. And there's one of the funniest part about 23C. So like, what should you look out for? So if you're a developer, there's a lot of little helpers all the way to amazing new functionality in there. Just really check it out. We have this up simple tagline. We put a lot of things in there for the developers. But of course, there's a lot more to come as well. It's one thing we have to we're fighting right now. That there's like all this hype about the developer release, but we will see a lot of advances in rack and security and all these other great functionalities as well when we have GA. So definitely worthwhile to check that out once again when it goes GA. And we're also not done with the updev area either yet. So there's other functionality that I cannot tell you about yet because we are still working on that. So we get more there as well. That sort of rounds it up. So yeah. So have a look. There's a lot in there.
You had me at JSON duality feature. That's the way I was.
No, you smiled at Boolean. I heard you laugh.
Yeah, I mean we have different points where we're working on. So Caro is using the Boolean data type heavily from today on.
And create table if not exists.
That's one.
Oh yeah,
thank
you.
Highlights.
Yeah.
Oh great! Well, thank you. Well, not a beer then the word next time, but
yeah, maybe at Apex Connect. Maybe
that one is kind of funny. That confuses people, oddly enough. It's like people are like, but I said create table if not exist, and it says table created,
and it's called if not exist, right?
That's the point. It's like you don't get an error. It's like, but it doesn't tell me if the table was already there. Don't use it. Then it will tell you. People get it more when they're into the testing kind of area, and then they kind of see, now it makes sense. And also, everybody uses create if not exist. I thought the drop if exist is much more popular. Yeah. I was like, clean up my tables, my users, whatever, and then just create. But a lot of people seem to like create if not exist. But yeah.
They will be happy when they're trying that out. So also happy are our listeners, I think. When they can have a little bit more insight of this product while listening to this podcast, and maybe they want to start out or start testing the new release they can get for free. So as in every podcast episode, we want to ask you some questions from our categories box. So maybe you can just do it like you never saw them. So that's maybe you are not prepared for them. So we have them translated from the usual German language. So maybe Caro, you can ask the first question from the hypothetical.
Yeah, random, I didn't read them anyway.
Yeah, right. Maybe Caro, from the hypothetical. Oh, I spelled it right. So maybe you can start it with the first question.
Yeah, of course. If you could undo one technological trend in the recent years, what would it be?
Microservices.
Okay.
because there's a lot in the whole new architecture patterns that I think like, yeah, okay. But for microservices specifically, I think it's maybe not so much about microservices per se, but we seem to be very eager in IT to build the most complex, convoluted, whatever, without, it's like, customer, what's your requirement? I actually don't care. Let me just build stuff.
Let me install Kubernetes, right?
Yeah, and it kind of, it's like the architecture is really, I mean, the microservices architecture makes a lot of sense. But what I always found funny is like when you even listen or read through what James Lewis or Martin Fowler said, and I think it's kind of starts coming back now, is, they were always very clear of when to use and when not to use it, and everybody kind of picked it up as like, we have to do microservices now. Monoliths are the devil's invention. And yeah, surprise, it's like, then you see some things, yeah, we have 1,500 microservices and whatever, and we don't know anymore what's running where, and it's like, it's a lot of fun for the building this stuff, way less fun to running it. And I guess, it's like, IT in general, I find, is something you kind of picked up maybe a bit from my blog bio. We are just odd, and we kind of like thrive on complexity rather than actually solving issues, right? And I always say to people, it's like, what's the best engineered software out there, right? Or like, where did we do it right? Maybe not best engineered software, right? The world still runs on TCP or TCP/IP, right? On top of that being HTTP, right? This like goes back to the 90s and before. We still have SSH, we still have FTP. It's like, it's all stuff to, coming back to your dad's point, Kai.
Put just
they were there
layer on
literally
it, right?
50 years ago, right? It's like, it's literally how the world runs. And then on top of that, I mean, obviously it's not all negative, but yeah, I think more like what if I have one wish, what could I wish for, would be like, for us just to kind of think more about, again, solving the actual problem rather than getting very excited about the different tools in the toolbox that we now have to play with.
Great. So this was so hypothetically, so we don't have to ask you another question from this category, I think. But let's switch into the in private section. So you told us how much you are doing and how much influence and how much features you already implemented yourself almost. But this leads me to the question, are you satisfied with your work-life balance doing all that stuff?
So I never implemented a feature. I told my guys to,
okay.
I brought it to the attention of my dev engineers, so they came to me and we buddied up, but they did the hard lifting, just to be accurate there. I think, am I happy? Yes, no.
All right.
Like,
so
sometimes yes, sometimes no. It sort of depends. I mean, I'm kind of happy when this COVID thing, technically being over, we're still kind of not quite over the hump. So I'll be happy when the world goes back to normal. Silicon Valley and working for such a company, there's a lot of excitement and a lot of, everything's very, very tech oriented, of course. So if you are a geek or enthusiastic about technology, it's, going out even to meetups after work or, having beers and talking about some random algorithm. It's actually fun and, not necessarily considered being at work anymore, kind of. But I guess in general, there's also, of course, also the times where it would be like, hey, we could all take a little bit more time for ourselves. So I think I'm happy with my work-life balance. I think I understand, or my wife anyway does, when I work too long or too much, and I will be corrected.
I mean, again, you already answered almost a second question from the in private thing. If you're surrounded by geeks or like if your friends are completely out of this tech section, so you can just shut off your mind from the day and just talk about different stuff. So
very different, I would say. I mean, some friends are in the tech sector, other people are like, mechanics or whatever. So it's like, it's very, very faceted.
Nice. Okay, I will ask a question of a consumption category now. So how do you deal with the growing flood of information via various channels? Like Twitter or TV or internet, everything.
That's a really good question. I think personally, Elon Musk did me a big favor with buying Twitter. It has gotten a lot more quiet there. And I also have a quite, really just recently when all of this kind of social media stuff started, bubbling up with scandal and Facebook and now this whole Twitter thing. It's like I pay way less attention and give way less importance to these channels. It's like if I don't have to be the first one to know about a new trend. If it truly is a trend, you will eventually pick up on it. It's like but it's like one thing that's really difficult is, and maybe even outside of IT, but it's like when to pay attention to what, right? It's like there's people out there that go like, "Oh, kids are only on the phones these days; they cannot even talk to each other anymore, etc." And I sort of personally wonder as well. Yeah, I mean, maybe there is something to it. There's just too much always on. Maybe it's too much. I don't know. Maybe it's not. But personally, for me, I have my a sector of interests, and maybe because of getting older, I'm like, I don't have to be the first on everything. It's like, especially when I feel for those folks that spent their life on Twitter. Have like, I don't know, 20,000 followers, and now the whole thing is about to blow up, and they're like, I wasted my last 10 years. I don't know, right? It's like. Certainly gave me perspective. It could end as quickly as that. So maybe don't spend your whole time on Twitter and all these social media platforms, etc.
So what a great word to end this podcast episode again. So we had so many guests during the last year, and so many of those are finding such great words to end this podcast. So I would let that sink in right now. And thank you, Gerald, for your attention to this podcast. And we are very glad that you asked us to to come on this podcast. No, just kidding. From an inside thing from the last conference we met. Thank you very much for coming into this episode and talk about this great release of the 23C free developer version of the Oracle database. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caro. I don't forget you too. Right, see you next time. Thank you.